This is FirstCoast.tv. We find ourselves in Jacksonville. We're following all these people from St. Augustine who are coming to another Indivisible meeting. The last one we covered was in Ponte Vedra. After that, we covered a rally for Trump at the Castillo, for President Trump at Castillo. Now we find ourselves back here at Indivisible in Jacksonville, following all these people from St. Augustine that have come here to support the rally. The whole idea behind this is it's a town hall. Rubio was invited, but Rubio, who says that he loves a town hall, didn't show up for this one. They really tried to get him here. So they've put up a suit, an empty suit representing Rubio. So let's see where this evening goes by, and we'll try to cover as much as we can. So here we are in Jacksonville, FirstCoast.tv. Jorge Rivera and Sebastián Jimenez. See you soon.
Welcome again. I'm really glad to see all of you. We are Indivisible Northeast Florida. Who are we? We are Indivisible Northeast Florida. We are a coalition of 9 regional indivisible groups. We are made up of Nassau County, Clay County, Flagler, San Marco, Ponte Vedra, United for Progress, St. John's, Jax, Riverside, Mandarin. What's going on back there? And Gatesville. So we've got a lot of groups that have come together. At this point, we actually represent over 6,000 members. So we're really excited about that. So I don't know how much you all know about Indivisible, but Indivisible runs on a couple basic tenets here. We believe in reaching out to your members of Congress to make change. We are constantly talking with Senator Rubio's staff and trying to get them to create an open dialogue with Senator Rubio. We wish he were here tonight, but we've got his suit instead. So some of the things that you could be looking for from us, some of the things you should be looking for from us are our daily actions. On the Indivisible Northeast Florida Facebook page, you will see every day daily calls to action. I know there are a lot of other calls to action out there, daily actions that you all look at, and they're all wonderful, and we hope you do them all. But think about the power if you go on to our page and do the daily actions on our page. Think about the power of all of us doing the same thing at the same time, and what kind of pressure and presence that leaves with our members of Congress. So we really hope you check us out there. The other thing that is important with Indivisible is meeting with your members of Congress. What is going on? I have no idea what is happening here. I'm sorry for all the technical difficulties. Trump here.
Good heaven, everyone. Good heaven. I'm the room and I'm such a glad today. Thank you. Tonight, I am announcing the start of my 2020 re-election campaign. Right here in Jacksonville. Our campaign slogan is Highway to Hell. Since we're halfway there already. I'm going to be on tour with AC/DC for the next 3.5 years. I'm not here to insult the terrible Germans or low-energy Angela Merkel. I won't make fun of France and little Emmanuel Macron, much less abandoning the Paris Agreement. And I won't brag about pushing to the front of the line at the NATO summit, like I did during the Republican conventions. Of course. Since I am such a great president with a big election win, and thanks to an enormous wiki leak, I am now president. But I'm going to take some questions from the crowd. If you could please step up, folks, do you have them ready? I'm going to take your questions, and please tell me your name and your voting district. Okay, what's your name, dude?
Steve.
Steve, good. I like Steve's. What's your question, Steve?
Mr. President, people are concerned about the reasons behind your firing of James Comey. Are you concerned that firing the FBI director during the Russian investigation created a constitutional crisis?
There's no constitutional crisis. That's fake news, okay? The Constitution is very safe. It's in a tightly sealed case where we keep Kellyanne Conway when she gets kicked off television. Besides, the Russia thing isn't true, only slightly. Jared had a sleepover at the Kremlin. I don't know Putin. We're BFFs. Next question.
Mr. President, Republicans in the House passed the HCA, and you celebrated it like it was a victory. How does it fulfill your promise to give better, more affordable coverage to everyone? If millions of people lose health care, Medicaid is slashed for a wealthy tax cut, and states can opt out of covering pre-existing conditions.
Well, as you all know, the Congressional Budget Office scored the bill, but CBO is never right. Steve Bannon told me he's a smart guy. I mean, where was the CBO when Moonlight won the Oscar instead of La La Land? They're never right. Some losers might not get coverage, but I like winners. We're doing so much winning. We have to cut Medicaid. It's a disaster, folks. And the money we save goes to people working hard to increase income disparity and destroy what's left of the middle class. That's right. question. Get out of here, Steve.
Mr. President.
Hold on, what you need? Steve?
Shirley.
Steve, all right, good stuff.
There is growing concern that North Korea will develop the capability to launch a nuclear weapon at the United States. What steps are you taking to deter Kim Jong-un from attacking the American homeland?
Let me just say that Kim Jong-un is a really smart guy. His people are loyal to him like Mike Flynn is loyal to me. Instead of pleading the fifth, they have to plead for their lives. It's a great place. But I think China will help by using egg rolls as bait to trap Mr. Un.
Mr. President, Congress recently passed a budget resolution that funds the government to the end of the fiscal year. Yet, there was no funding for the border wall and no cuts to the EPA or Department of State. Will you fight for these things in the next round of budget negotiations?
First of all, how's my hair? It's called a comb over because it helps prevent male-pattern baldness. Anyway, we're going to build a beautiful wall. A huge wall. It's great. We'll have hot dog carts on our side and taco trucks on the Mexican side. Delicious. My budget proposal shows I'm a fighter because I'm punching the safety net in the nuts and I'm gut punching the needy and the poor. Great. If Congress doesn't do what I want, I'll throw a temper tantrum. Very rare. Then I'll march to the Capitol building and I'll bend Paul Ryan over my knee and spank his firm hiney. But I plan to combine the EPA and the State Department into the Bureau of Spray Tanner and Trump golf courses. Great. Next question. Thank you, Steve. Steve?
Mr. President, you maintain properties in Florida that could be negatively impacted by the effects of oil exploration and fossil fuel extraction. What is your position on coastal drilling and fracking in Florida?
Well, when I was a bachelor, me and the guys would go out on the town for some drilling and fracking of our own. It's good fun. Hey, I may be in a loveless marriage now, but a man can dream of a big, beautiful oil rig over the horizon. Nothing says strong like a nice big pipe. A bigly, smooth pipeline. Manly. If we just put gold letters on top, then oil rigs and drilling sites would be really classy. Like ketchup on filet mignon. Next question. What's your name, sir?
Steve, 2.
Steve, excellent. 6 Steves, just like my cabinet. Go ahead, Steve.
Mr. President, after the appointment of the special counsel by the Deputy Attorney General, you tweeted that you were the victim of a witch hunt. However, when you were running for president and Hillary Clinton was under investigation, you argued that she could not be trusted. Doesn't it seem that your argument can be turned against you at this time?
Well, let me just say, Hillary Clinton is more crooked than a corkscrew. It's very unfair to compare me to her. It's like comparing people to orange. Very unfair. Everyone knows arguments expire quickly. Like what Sean Spicer says before I give an interview the next day. As long as I have Twitter, I'll be a great leader. A dear leader. Which is why I won so bigly in 2016. So, I've got to go now. It was great to be here in Jacksonville, Florida. Vote Trump 2020 because I am definitely not being impeached by a Republican Congress. And I'm not resigning anytime soon. For those making America great again, I salute you.
I'm supposed to stay. So, anyway, back to what I was saying about who Indivisible is. Also, just want to note, thank you guys. We like the agree and disagree signs throughout the town hall. If you'll use your signs whenever you agree or disagree, we appreciate it. I see you already got that going, so that's great. I know I said who we are, what groups we represent, and how many people we represent, and about our daily calls to action. We also really encourage you all to make meetings with your members of Congress. It's not hard to do. And if you join one of our Indivisible groups, there are always people in there that are willing to help you write letters, help you to formulate your thoughts, and we are continuing to meet with our members of Congress or to meet with the regional directors. We hope that someday soon Senator Rubio will meet with us directly. But until he does, we're going to continue to keep going and continue talking to the regional directors and the people that we can communicate with. And as I said, we encourage you guys to do that as well. Another thing we like to take advantage of is any public appearances. So this is one place where we need all of you. We know that Senator Rubio, nobody is announcing where they're going to be. It's really hard to find out if they're going to be at a ribbon cutting ceremony or if they're going to be at a luncheon like the luncheon that John Rutherford was at. He was speaking to a lawyers guild at Ruth's Chris, and we found out about it, and we had a die-in, and we got attention. We actually have pictures of them taking pictures of us. So my ask of you is that if you are in an organization and you get wind of Senator Rubio being somewhere, or Rutherford being somewhere, or Yoho, or whoever your representative, or DeSantis, and whoever your representatives are, reach out to us at Indivisible and let us know, because we want to be there. And you can't guarantee that we're going to know about it, because we may not be on that same mailing list. I also ask just one more matter of business at the end of, if you can return your agree-disagree signs, because you're probably going to see us at another town hall again, and we're going to need them, and we don't want to kill too many trees. So what have we done? I'm just going to talk for a second about what we've done. We've had these rallies. We've done all these things. What have we actually accomplished? So in the first 100 days, we made history with the Women's March. Repeated protests of Andrew Putzer's disdain for workers, history of opposing a raise in the minimum wage, and government labor protections caused him to withdraw from consideration to lead the Department of Labor. Thanks to efforts begun by grassroots activists, the vote to get the Independent Congressional Ethics Office was reversed. After a massive public outcry, Jason Chavez withdrew a bill that would have ordered the Secretary of the Interior to sell off 3.3 million acres of national land. And guys, as I'm reading this is true. This is what every single one of you has done. I keep getting asked all of the time, what is Indivisible Northeast Florida? And I talk about the groups that are in our coalition, and they're really important. But really, Indivisible Northeast Florida is you. It's me, it's the person sitting next to you. We are Indivisible Northeast Florida. And coming together like this and being able to sit next to somebody new and look at your neighbor and realize that you're surrounded by people who care is a really amazing thing. So you all should really pat yourselves on the back for all of the hard work that you guys have put in. So a couple other things. We contributed to the ACLU, raising $24 million in one weekend when the Muslim travel ban was in effect. When millions of Americans' health care was threatened, we took to the streets and phones and our members of Congress's office to protest. The first bill never made it through the House. You know, we're all actively and vigorously defending our democracy and letting our government know that we will not tolerate Russian interference in our electoral process or our government. So that said, you guys do great work, and I want to see you keep doing great work. Go, you just signed up with us tonight. You'll be getting some information from us. Go onto our webpage, sign up, find your local group, join us, follow us. When we stand together, we are indivisible. And now, for the big affair, I want to introduce Connie Timpson, who's going to be our moderator for the town hall tonight. Connie's an award-winning investigative journalist. She's the author of 4 books. She's a team-building facilitator and a business coach. She has one overriding theme in her life, and that she thinks that we're all extraordinary. Connie, thank you.
And I do believe that every single person in this room has a talent, something about them that is absolutely extraordinary. And these are difficult times. I would call on you to look inside and find that extraordinary, because I guarantee you, you have it. You don't have to be famous to be extraordinary. In fact, usually the famous people are not so extraordinary. But the real people of the world with real hearts and souls, you will find them reaching out, reaching back, and they are extraordinary. And I ask you to really take that to heart and look at all the people around you and say, we are extraordinary, and together we can make a huge difference in what's happening today. And tonight, what are we all here for? A town hall. And it seems to me that we invited Senator Marco Rubio to our town hall. In fact, I know we did, but he turned down our invitation. Can't imagine why. Maybe he doesn't want to answer questions, not quite sure. But he sent a clone, a little bit, how shall I say, like himself, substance lacking. You might even call it an empty suit. And so tonight, we are going to talk to the senator as if he is standing here with us. And do you want to know his opinion of town halls? Okay. Stuart?
I'll do real town halls. I like real town halls. I don't care if people are real town halls that don't like what I say. I'm fine with it. That happens all the time. What I think has happened now is that groups, and I want to be fair on both sides, use town halls as a forum to be disruptive. They're not there to listen to what you have to say. They're not there to give input. They are there for political purposes, to create a scene so they can be on the news that night. And that's their right, but it's not productive. I'm interested in engaging in a process where I can talk to people, as we do every day, on the phone, through email. They send us letters. I call people personally that call my office. I'm interested in getting people's input about how to make laws better. But that's not what town halls are right now, and that's unfortunate. Hopefully that'll change.
Really? Has he called any single person in this room? No. And have you called him? Yes. Exactly. And there we have substance-less, the suit. One of the things facing us today, of course, is a complete chaotic White House. Am I right about that? Yes. Every day it is a new scandal. Comey fired because maybe he got too close and he would not commit, I am loyal to you. So he was out. He's a really tall guy to throw out, by the way. Michael Flynn, hired while being investigated, and then he got fired. And then, of course, his own son-in-law, Jared Kushner, now has the Russian sun shining down on him. And don't we hope it gets a little hot? But perhaps the worst of all was when, I just threw that on the floor, not really, that's not the worst of all, but was when Mr. Trump, within the confines of perhaps the most sacred political room in the world, the Oval Office, shared classified information with the Russians, saying, oh, I'm just helping our allies. Do you all think that was helping allies? We have time for a couple of questions now on this very subject. Please come up. Thank you so much. I'm a dropper. Thank you. And I think we have one question right here. I think we have a couple. We have time for 2 questions. So if you would, go ahead and ask. We have time for 3 questions. I stand corrected.
Mr. Rubio, do you think it was in any way appropriate for Donald Trump to give the Russians classified information, possibly reviewing information given to us by Israel, a trusted ally?
That he gave them that sort of information. Everybody that was in the room that I've spoken to denies that that's what happened. But obviously that'll be a focus of the inquiries as we move forward. And number 3, I think the Russians will, if they cooperate against terrorism, it will be to the extent that it's in their interest vis-a-vis their view of the United States. Who they define as terrorists is not simply ISIS. They also define as terrorists virtually any group on the ground that is confronting Assad. We're focused on radical jihadists. They're focused not just on that, but anybody who is trying to get rid of Assad.
Blah, blah, blah. Our second question, please.
Mr. Rubio, I'm a member of Northeast Florida and San Marcos Indivisible groups, and I have a question to ask you. As a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, how can you guarantee an in-depth, nonpartisan investigation into Trump's ties to Russia? Thank you. I'll wait for your response.
First of all, I remind everybody, back in October of last year, I was a candidate for the United States Senate, and I refused to talk about WikiLeaks. I might have been the only Republican in the country who said that. I wouldn't use it against Secretary Clinton. I wouldn't use it against my opponent. And I said then I wouldn't, because it was the work of a foreign intelligence agency who was trying to interfere in our elections. And that was my position back then, and I think I stood alone in my party in taking that position. Now fast forward to January and February of this year, when all these matters begin to arise. I am a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And the Senate Intelligence Committee has been working on this issue in a bipartisan way. And I encourage you to look at some of the things my Democratic colleagues are saying about it. And so I spend literally hours a week focused just on this issue in the hopes that we can create a product that is bipartisan, but also thorough and fair, and puts out the facts to the American people on the fundamental questions of, did the Russians interfere in the U.S. elections? Was there collusion between the Russians and any presidential campaign? And related to all this, what about the intelligence community? Has it behaved appropriately, either in identifying this or in the way they handled the information once they got it? All of these things are within our purview. Now here's the problem. If I'm out there every single day giving an opinion, I'm already biased. And you saw what happened in the United States House of Representatives, where the chairman of the House committee was out there taking firm positions before the investigation had concluded and had to end up recusing himself. So in order for this product to be a good product, it is important for those of us on the committee not to be out there every day giving our opinion about what we think has happened until we finish our work. Otherwise, we're going to have a product of that committee that people are going to think we went in with preconceived notions, that we had already made up our minds. I assure you of this, there is no one in the United States Senate that has worked harder or taken more seriously the threat to and number 2, I am going to go wherever the truth and the facts lead us, irrespective of party. That's what I've always said, but we need to finish our work. Related to this, we see a lot of phone calls that say, well, appoint a special counsel. Well, we can't. Congress cannot appoint the special counsel. Only the Justice Department could. My only concern with that is, now that there is a special counsel appointed, Robert Mueller, who's a person who's very well respected and I believe will do a very good job, but suddenly the people he's now talking to are going to start to not appear or share documents with the Intelligence Committee, and it's going to potentially impede our probe. So you can start to see how the existence of an open and active inquiry on behalf of a special counsel could potentially impede the work, the important work of this congressional committee. So my advice was, let us finish our work, let us put out the facts, and then based on the facts, we can determine whether or not we need a special counsel. But that decision was made by the Assistant Attorney General, which on the case of Russia is the Acting Attorney General. And now that that decision has been made, we should all be supportive of it, and everyone should cooperate with that effort.
Okay. And since when are politics and investigations a product? I would like to ask you that. Marion.
Senator Rubio, my name is Marion, and I'm a voting constituent from zip code 32217. I stood with the president. Well, now I have to talk really loud.
You were nobody. Marion, you can come right up here.
Senator Rubio, you have stood with the president on many issues, and on some positions, you have refused to take a stand. How can you support a man who constantly changes his mind and increases anxiety among the American public?
Senator.
I don't understand why people are that shocked. This president ran a very unconventional campaign. I was there for a big part of it at the beginning, alongside being one of his competitors. And that's what the American people voted for. And in essence, this White House is not much different from the campaign. I mean, people got what they voted for. They elected him. We, obviously, for the best interest of this country, try to help him succeed. As far as the drama is concerned, yeah, I mean, it's unique. It's different from anything we've ever confronted. I think our job remains to do our work. We'll have to deal with these issues. These issues come up, these questions every single day. And I do think the White House would benefit from some systems in place that perhaps avoids some of the unnecessary friction points that come up on a daily basis. But this is also the political environment we now live in, too. And politics are covered this way. And politicians also behave in this way because they know they can get attention for saying things one way or the other. It's just the way politics has moved. I don't think it's good for the country, but that's where we're headed for now, apparently.
Thank you. And now we turn to an issue that is number one for many of us, and that is health care. How many of you are satisfied with what you believe may become health care of the future? Quick question. How many of you have a pre-existing condition that would put you in a high-risk pool? Oh, I see a lot of hands. And those of you, and if there are any women in this group who didn't raise your hands, you're women. Raise your hands. Raise your hands. The Congressional Budget Office calls Trump's care cruel. It will raise rates for the sick and elderly by as much as 850%. How can we let this happen? That premiums will rise that much. In an interview with The Economist, Mr. Trump said, and I quote, and he said it so proudly, "You're 20 years old and you've just graduated from college and you start paying $15 a month for insurance. It's for the rest of your life. And by the time you reach 70 and you really need it, you're still paying $15 a month. And that's really insurance. Is anyone in this room paying only $15 a month for insurance? That's what I thought. And we have time for a couple of questions on healthcare. If you would come up, please.
I donated a kidney to a human being, a father, a son, and a person that I did not know to save his life. Because I now have only one kidney, I am considered to have a pre-existing condition. The health care bill that the House passed would place me under the administration of state insurance regulators who may not even accept me into the high-risk pool. If they do, I will have to pay up to 5 times more than if I had not saved this stranger's life. I'm not fighting for myself as much as I am for other living donors all around this country and for the 100,000 of our fellow Americans, of which 13 die each day, that are on the transplant list. You and your colleagues are slamming the door in those transplant patients' face. They will be victims of your yes vote on this health care bill. By forcing living organ donors into the pre-existing category, there will be fewer donors and you will condemn patients waiting for a transplant to a shorter life. What happens to me, the living donors and the transplant patients?
So my plan has always been and continues to be that we have a big, robust tax credit available so that people can purchase this insurance, but also that we give and create the flexibility for the private market to design plans that meet your needs. Now, everybody gets into these debates about the required coverage that any insurance plan needs to have. In Florida, we have over 40 mandates in our state law already that go well beyond the 10 that are in Obamacare. So it's not as big of an impact on Florida as it might be on another state. But again, allowing there to be flexibility is important in terms of the pricing. And if the tax credit is right, and you calibrate that tax credit so that the older and sicker you are, the higher that tax credit is, it will make the availability of the individual market better for people who need it.
So why should a good Samaritan, someone who gave part of her own body to someone else, be punished by our healthcare system? I want you all to give Diana a big hand. Many states are now struggling with what's going to happen to Medicare. Other states are struggling with cutbacks to Medicare, Medicaid, and those people who depend on help from Medicare if they have some kind of disability. And tonight we have a remarkable young woman here to tell you her story.
Good evening, Senator. My name is Mary Mammarella, and I'm a constituent from 32257. And I am college educated and have worked and supported myself since I was 19 years old until 2010 when I became legally blind due to a rare eye disease. So I'm 58 years old and I have Medicare due to disability. Since becoming blind, I have met many members of the disabled community in Jacksonville and come to know firsthand just how critical good medical care is in keeping people engaged and keeping them as independent as possible while they try to manage their lives with serious disabilities. My question to you is, with the Republican version of a health care plan that's going to replace Obamacare, can you guarantee to people like me and all of the people that I have met with disabilities, and some of them have multiple disabilities that they're trying to live with and trying to stay as independent as possible, can you guarantee that your plan will not take away the critical health care that they need to stay as independent and productive and engaged as they possibly can?
The House product, I know they worked hard on it. That is not the Senate bill. The Senate is going to do its own bill. The second thing is, what are we talking about here? We're not talking about the commercial plans. And by and large, most Americans, including me, you get your health insurance from the place where you work. This does not really impact you in terms of
many members of the disabled community in Jacksonville have come to know firsthand just how critical good medical care is.
Insurance from Medicare. Medicare is not being touched in all of this. So what we're primarily focused on are two things: Medicaid and the individual marketplace. Now that is a small percentage of the overall population, but it's a significant number of people, millions of people. So what are my goals? Number one is I want Florida to be treated fairly when it comes to Medicaid. I want to make sure that we are not penalized because we didn't expand. And I want to make sure that whatever funding formula there is for Medicaid treats Florida fairly, but allows
and
it to
keeping them as
operate
independent as possible while they try to use their life.
coverage for people, but that we get people coverage that actually is better for their health, gets better outcomes. One of the studies showed, multiple studies have shown that people on Medicaid that was not managed, that they weren't getting primary care and the like, their health outcomes are no better than people that were uninsured. So that's why I'm a believer in Medicaid.
My question to you is, with the Republican version of the health care plan that's going to replace Obamacare, can you guarantee to people like me and all of the people that I have met with disabilities, and some of them have multiple disabilities that they're trying to live with?
The House product, how they work on.
If you guys will be just
Hang
on just a minute, we've got a technical problem that we're going to work out. Go ahead and just turn it off for a minute. It'll take us just a second. All this stuff is new. This is the first time we've ever worked in this hall, and we're trying to get everything together, so just give us a minute here.
The House product, I know they worked hard on it. That is not the Senate bill. The Senate is going to do its own bill. The second thing is, what are we talking about here? We're not talking about the commercial plans, because by and large, most Americans, including many of you, get your health insurance from the place where you work. This does not really impact you in terms of, it may in terms of the premium going down, hopefully. But none of these things that we're talking about impact people that are getting insurance from their job. It also doesn't impact anyone that's getting insurance from Medicare. Medicare is not being touched in all of this. So we're Medicaid and the individual marketplace. Now that is a small percentage of the overall population, but it's a significant number of people, millions of people. So what are my goals? Number one is I want Florida to be treated fairly when it comes to Medicaid. I want to make sure that we are not penalized because we didn't expand. And I want to make sure that whatever funding formula there is for Medicaid treats Florida fairly, but allows it to continue to operate in an innovative way so that we don't just get more coverage for people, but that we get people coverage that actually is better for their health, gets better outcomes. One of the studies showed, multiple studies have shown, that people on Medicaid that was not managed, that they weren't getting primary care and the like, their health outcomes were no better than people that were uninsured. Diabetics are checking their blood sugar levels. People are going in and have their blood, if you have high blood pressure, that's being monitored. If you have a heart condition, that you're taking your meds, etc. All these things are important.
But what I want to say is the heroine in the back of our room, this role model, Mary, who has struggled so hard. Every single person in this room needs to write, needs to talk, needs to speak out about these issues, because it affects every single one of us. Former president, I find this hard to imagine that I'm saying this, George W. Bush has gone to bat for women's health. And he says that Trump's pro-life policies are pro-death policies. Right. And that should galvanize every single one of us. And our last question, please.
Hello, my name is Mary Ann. I'm from zip code 32034. And I have a two-part question. No man would give up his right to choose what happens to his body. We want the same treatment, and yet not one single woman is on the Senate committee to decide the outcome. Additionally, the proposed budget cuts many programs designed to help the poor and needy in this country, many of them children. Therefore, my questions are these. How do you, Senator Rubio, justify taking away a woman's right to what happens to her own body? And secondly, how do you reconcile your belief that a fetus deserves protection, but not the children that the fetuses become?
Now, listen carefully for the response.
Senator Rubio, I'm Dr. Jennifer Calvert. I'm a hospitalist here
here in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm having a hard time speaking over your overwhelming silence. I'm your constituent in zip code 32258, and I'd like to set the record straight on a few things. First, the individual markets are... The individual markets... I'm still on. All right. Look at that. The individual markets are destabilizing right now due to uncertainty regarding Trump's threats to not pay the CSR payments and not enforce the individual mandate. Will you stand up to stabilize these markets while the Senate works on their process? You want managed Medicaid, but the House bill doesn't do anything to support Medicaid. It cuts $800 billion out of federal Medicaid. By 2028, 1.2 million Floridians would lose Medicaid coverage. 227,000 are children. Instead of cutting funds to Medicaid, will you fight to reform the program? You said Florida has state mandates that go beyond the 10 in the ACA. A CMS report shows that prior to ACA, there was no requirement in Florida for individual plans to cover mental health, or for individual or small group plans to cover substance abuse. Only large group plans were required to cover autism services. Rick Scott has declared a state of emergency in Florida for the opioid epidemic. In 2015, 3,900 Floridians died of overdose. Why would you want to take Florida back to a time when substance abuse treatment was not required by insurance plans? And as a senator, you not only represent Florida, you make decisions that affect the country. I don't want my neighbors in Alabama to lose protections like maternity coverage just because Florida was forward-thinking enough to require this benefit. You said we aren't talking about employer-based coverage, which is 50% of the market, but the AHCA removes the employer mandate. Will you stand for keeping the employer mandate so that big employers can uphold their responsibilities to their employees? You say you want big, robust tax credits, but the AHCA increases premium costs and lowers tax credits and subsidies on elderly and sick people. In some cases, this could be 800% increased. What will you do for Florida's population who are too young for Medicare, but who are getting ill and will be priced out of the individual market? This current bill is estimated to knock 2 million people off insurance in Florida. Senator, you say you want to lower premiums. You say you want to improve care in Medicaid. You want people to have certain benefits mandated by Florida law. The way to do that is to stop treating this health care bill as a vehicle to cut taxes for the wealthy and to do your job. Care Act, don't gut it. Reform Medicaid, don't cap it. Allowing states to gut pre-existing conditions hurts us all. America needs a healthy population to grow our economy at home and abroad. As a doctor, I fight every day to take care of these people.
Do your job! Do your job!
Did you hear that?
Do your job!
That was so well put. I cannot believe it, and I would love to see it as an editorial in the newspaper or everywhere else on national television. It was really wonderful and all-encompassing, and Senator Rubio, very challenging to you and your compatriots, so we hope that you will listen. And our last topic that unites and divides other people in this country, and it should not. If you are not a Native American, you are what? An immigrant. We are a nation of immigrants. A nation of immigrants. And yet we hear about building walls. We want to have extreme vetting for immigrants who come in here, unless you are part of the golden visa process that the Kushners can offer you. And that is unfair. That is unfair. That is not what America stands for. 100 years ago, this last week, many of you know, was the birthday of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who encompassed the values, encapsulated the American spirit and gave us hope and dreams for a better future.
America was to be the great experiment, a testing ground for political liberty, a model for democratic government. And although the first task was to mold a nation on these principles here in this continent, we would also lead the fight against tyranny in all continents. This is a great inheritance. It is a proud privilege to be a citizen of the great republic, to realize that we are the descendants of 40 million people who left other countries, other familiar scenes, to come here to the United States to build a new life, to make a new opportunity for themselves and their children. I think it is not a burden, but a privilege to have the chance to share that great concept among all of our people, to make this really, as it was for them, a new world for us, and indeed for all those who look to us. That is what this organization has stood for 50 years. That's what this country has stood for 200 years. And that's what this country will continue to stand for.
And Senator Rubio was part of the original Gang of 8. They were to work on an immigration bill that would fast track, that would help people, and then suddenly it got really hot. And when it did, he got out. And as soon as he got out, it went another way. But if you think back, even Ronald Reagan, I keep bringing up Republican presidents, it's amazing to me, but Ronald Reagan in 1986 declared amnesty for all illegal immigrants living in the United States. He too had a vision and hope, and one of those immigrants is married to my niece. He has 2 degrees and their son is now in medical school. Are these not the kind of immigrants we want in this country? There is great pressure on sanctuary cities. We all know that right now. And we have time for 2 more questions in this segment. And I should have played some music, or you don't want me to sing while you're walking up, I'll guarantee you that. Okay.
All right, Senator Rubio, I am your constituent. I live in St. Augustine, Florida, zip code 32095. My grandparents were immigrants who came over around the turn of the century to make a better life for their family, and they've made many valuable contributions to our country. Now, President Trump and you have stated that sanctuary cities should be punished by losing federal funds if they don't help enforce harsh federal immigration laws. These policies promote racial and ethnic profiling and lead to fear of imprisonment and deportation, even among those who are here legally. Senator Rubio, I ask, will you vote against any legislation that would withhold federal funding from cities who choose not to identify and detain immigrants?
Well, one of the things we've talked about in the past, and we've tried to get included in negotiations with Democrats in the past, is the idea of getting rid of the sanctuary city situation and saying to these localities, if you're not going to participate in helping us to enforce these laws, then you're not going to be eligible for the federal funding that you're receiving. Look, it's an outrageous situation where you have these localities that basically decide that
what about separation of church,
they can somehow ignore the enforcement of these laws. We are a sovereign country. We have a right to enforce our immigration laws, irrespective about how you feel about immigration at large. Everyone should acknowledge that we as a country have a right to have immigration laws and a right to enforce them. And in this case, you have political elected officials who refuse to comply with the law because they don't agree with the law. And that is just completely unacceptable.
The Catholic Church and many, many other church leaders have been very critical of Mr. Trump's wanting to build this wall and his policy on immigration. And they are also very critical of the deep cuts that are going to our most vulnerable and unhealthy Americans. Bishop Frank J. Duane, you may know him, some of you may know him, of Venice, Florida, said, "Too often we think the budget is a number. It is not. Right behind those numbers are human beings, and they look like you, they look like me, and they are immigrants too." Carl?
My name is Carl Zabel. I'm a Catholic, a grandson of an immigrant, a veteran, a patriot, a taxpayer, and one of your constituents from 32223, Senator Rubio. Do you support the churches, all of the churches' positions, calling for compassionate immigration reform, providing a path to citizenship through due process of law, addressing the root causes of immigration?
I do, but first we have to do two things. The first thing we have to do is we have to prove to the American people that illegal immigration is under control. And today, that lack of confidence has made it impossible for us to make progress on immigration reform. So the first thing we have to do is we have to pass real reforms that secure the border more secure than it is today, an entry-exit tracking system to prevent visa overstays. And we also need to create an electronic verification system for employers so that they can verify the people they're hiring are legally here. We need to put that in place and show it to the American people and prove illegal immigration for the future now is under control. So after we do that, the second step is we must modernize our legal immigration system. Today, legal immigration is primarily on the basis of whether or not you have a relative living here. In the 21st century, it must be based on what skills you have or what you can contribute economically. After we've done those two steps, I believe the American people will be very generous but responsible about what you do with those that have been here a long time. And I think the best approach is to have them come forward, undergo a background check, pay a fine for having violated our law, start paying taxes, and in return for all of that, they'll get a work permit that would allow them to work and travel legally in the United States. That's the only status they would be allowed to have for at least a decade. And then assuming if after a decade they comply with all of that, then they would be allowed to apply for permanent residency, just like anybody else would, not through a special path. And of course, once you have permanent residency, depending on how you acquire it, within 3 to 5 years, you could apply for citizenship. That is a long path, but I do think it's fair and reasonable. But we can't even get to that third step I've outlined until we've done the other two things first. That's just the reality of the political situation we have today in America.
Do you think it's fair? And now
for you. For climate change means rising oceans, which in South Florida means flooded neighborhoods, even flooded downtown. Will you accept the scientific consensus about climate change, and will you pledge to do something about it?
The climate is changing, and one of the reasons why the climate is changing is because the climate has always been changing. There has never been a time when the climate has not changed. I think the fundamental question for a policymaker is the climate changing because of something we are doing, and if so, is there a law you can pass to fix it? So on the issue of flooding in Miami, it's caused by two things. Number one, South Florida is largely built on land that was once a swamp. And number two, because if there is higher sea levels or whatever it may be happening, we do need to deal with that through mitigation, and I have long supported mitigation efforts. But as far as a law that we can pass in Washington to change the weather, there's no such thing. There would be no change. Sea level is still rise. All these other things that are happening will continue to go on for a lot of different reasons. One, because America is not a planet. It's a country. And number two, because it's I am not going to destroy the U.S. economy for a law that will do nothing for our environment.
just one quick reminder, the roadways that we now see under seawater, they were not built underwater. Our next question.
Hi, I'm Jill from 32205. My question is, what are your thoughts on investments in alternative energy sources to avoid the detrimental environmental impact offshore drilling will have on Florida's coast?
Here's the truth.
Whether we like it or not, there's going to be offshore drilling. Maybe not right off the coast. It's going to impact Florida. That's just a fact, and nothing we do here is going to be able to stop that now. Now, I have filed a bill that extends the moratorium, on offshore drilling. And that's a unanimous position, basically, of the entire Florida delegation. The difference between my bill and other bills is that my bill would allow Florida to participate in revenue sharing, meaning the money that is made from that drilling, even though it's not in Florida waters, Florida would be able to get some of that money. And the reason why is, even though we're not drilling, if there's a spill, it's not like the oil spill is going to stop at our territorial borders. It's going to continue to move into our waters if it hits the Gulf Stream or anything else. And so we are taking on the same risk as these other states, but we're not getting any money in return. And so this would be revenue, if it ever became available, that would be available to states like Florida. Even if we're not drilling, so we probably aren't going to get as much as the other states. To be able to get some revenue in favor of many needs that we have in our state. And now some people don't like that idea because they claim that that will be an incentive for a future legislature in Florida to allow offshore drilling, or to be moving towards offshore drilling. You know, I think that's speculative. I think the pressure will still be extraordinary not to do so. It is a pretty broadly held belief in Florida that we don't want drilling in our waters. But we are, whether we want it or not, there's drilling just outside of our waters that could impact us. And if we're on the hook and we're at risk, should we not participate in revenue sharing, even though it's not drilling in our waters?
And tonight we have with us an expert from Greenpeace. Her name is Leanne Gustavus. Please forgive me if that's not correct. She is the director of the Jacksonville organization.
So in response, Senator Rubio, yes, the climate continues to evolve naturally at a steady rate, but in the last 20 years, we have seen our climate change drastically. Changes are occurring at an alarming rate. With the rise of modern industrialization, the increased rate of combustion of fossil fuels concentrates carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. That creates a greenhouse effect, making the Earth's surface temperature hotter than we've ever seen it. This changes climate patterns, think El Nino, La Nina, causes weather anomalies in areas who have not had time to adapt to higher and higher tides, flooding, droughts, etc. The number of climate change related incidents have increased fourfold between 1980 and 2010, according to the World Health Organization. The United States constitutes 5% of the world's population, yet contributes to 22% of the world's carbon emissions. We are not asking for a bill to change the weather. We are asking for you to recognize the effects humans have on our world as a whole, and to pass legislation regulating and restricting the rampant use of fossil fuels and other harmful environmental practices of corporations and individuals alike. We ask you to urge Congress and the President to rejoin the Kyoto Protocol of 1997 that set targets on cutting emissions in developed countries. We ask that you urge Congress and the President to not pull out of the Paris Accord, as the plan seems to indicate. 195 countries have joined forces in an attempt to mitigate the factors we can control that affect the climate. Let us join the rest of the world to help save it. We implore you. And in response to the offshore drilling clip, Senator, you seem to contradict yourself when you say you support a moratorium on offshore drilling off the coast of Florida, yet you wish Florida to profit off of offshore drilling projects off the coast of other states.